Carrio's ready to start.
We are ready this time?
Yes.
Well, thank you. And good evening, everyone. This meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board is now called to order. We are May 14th, 2024. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Rios.
Here.
Vice Chair Guida.
Here.
Member Mather.
Here.
Member Aguilar Medrano.
Excused.
Member Bienvenu.
Excused.
Member Valdo.
Here.
Member Bescheid. Here. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any changes to the agenda, Heather?
Carrio's member of the board. Yes, we do have changes under item 4, conclusion of law. Item F and G should state March 26, 2024, not March 12th. And then under new business, item A postponed to June 11th. And then the last one is number 11, Tuesday, May 28th. The next meeting has been canceled. The next meeting will be June 11th.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as just amended?
So moved, Barguida.
Bescheid seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
The agenda has been approved.
Thank you very much. We have minutes of April the 24th, 2024. Changes to these minutes. Anyone here on the board or staff? It appears there are no changes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Bescheid moves to approve the minutes from April 24, 2024.
I'll second the motion.
And may I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
The minutes have been approved here.
Thank you, Becky. Under findings of fact, conclusions of law, we have 5 that are under March 12th, 2024. Changes to any of these? Anyone? It appears not. Do I hear a motion to approve these?
Bescheid moves to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law for items A through E from March 12, 2024.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
The motion has passed. The minutes have been approved.
Thank you. And we have findings and conclusions from March 12th, 2024. We have 2 of them. Those are items F and G. Changes? No changes? Motion, please.
Bescheid moves to approve items F and G, the findings of fact and conclusions of law from March 26, 2024.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Thank you very much. Matters from the public. Anyone in this room wishing to speak, please come forward. I see Stephanie Benato coming forward.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Benato. I have emailed Heather today, but I have emailed constituent services before, I believe, about 300 Galisteo and also 311 Old Santa Fe Trail. Both of them have HVAC systems that are clearly visible from the street. There's no shielding of any kind. And especially at 311 Old Santa Fe Trail, it virtually takes over the whole roof. So I'm bringing that to your attention. And I'm also wondering at 1407 Paseo de Peralta, it has a building permit and they have replaced windows and doors, but I don't know if they came here or if it's replacement in kind, but it's not necessarily really replacement in kind. because they're slightly smaller and aluminum clad. The other thing that concerns me is the Lucchese case. And I'm concerned because on May 8th, Mr. Rubolid told a district court judge that the Lucchese case had come to this board twice and that had been approved twice. I know that some of you weren't here, and I'll just briefly go through it, but in August of 2022, exceptions were asked for a sign on the plaza, and they had a non-conforming sign from 10 or 12 years ago. It was voted for, but then the rules changed and the board can only make recommendations, and they would go to council for final approval. And that vote was not taken as a recommendation. It went to the BOA, the Board of Adjustment, for a height variance, and then came back to the board on March 14th, 2023. And at that point, the board voted against it. And I do have the minutes here. And again, the motion was, the request is to deny. It's quite long. I could quote the whole thing, but it clearly says that the request was denied. And the other thing is that Mr. Rubolid on May 8th also said that I didn't understand that section 1425A6 had only to do with structures, but this was a point of discussion on March 14th because it actually says structures other than buildings, including signs, not conforming to the architectural style or sign standards set forth in this section shall be considered non-conforming. So no alteration or repair may be made, only removal. So again, this was a gratuitous, seemingly deliberate misstatement by Mr. Rubolid. And my concern is that the other thing is that Ms. Lamboy at a different ethics commission meeting said that the applicant, after the recommendation was denied, decided not to go to council for the full vote. I don't believe they really had the authority to do that. They could withdraw their application, but they can't say, we'll just kind of leave this in limbo. And it is in limbo because it's never been approved by council, and it was not one of the 4 cases sent back to you at the beginning of the year. And I'm afraid that somehow there'll be institutional memory loss, and suddenly there'll be a new Lucchese sign on the plaza. And so that is why I am bringing this to your attention. It's extremely distressing when the city assistant city attorney misrepresents fact and law to a district court judge. But my concern here is that somehow the Lucchese sign doesn't just get slipped in without anybody knowing about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else in this audience wishing to come forward at this time to speak? No? And Heather, do we have anyone on Zoom?
We do not.
Thank you very much. Next is staff communications.
Chair Rios, members of the board, just a reminder, tomorrow we're going to have our next subcommittee meeting on the update to the Historic Districts Ordinance. We received some comments, and I will be reporting out on the results of the first session where we talked about what priorities might be in order for phase 2. And so the purpose of that meeting is really just to go over the comments of the committee members. As you may recall, this is the code hygiene portion of the code update. So there's nothing that's going to be changed at this point. With the ordinance itself, it will just be the reordering it and reorganizing it so it's more legible and understandable.
Thank you, Heather. And that's tomorrow night in this building, not in this room, but at 5:30.
At 5:30 in the counselor's conference.
Thank you. Anything else, Heather?
No, Chair Rios, not at this time.
Thank you. We have nothing under old business, and we do have 4 cases under new business. Rebecca, will you help me or someone help me with the 2-minute limit for public comment? Only for public comment. And also, if you disagree with the decision that this board renders this evening, you do have the option to appeal to the city council. And that would be after the findings and conclusions have been approved, and you have 15 days after that to appeal. With that being said, we'll move to the first case, and that is located at 106 Camino Santiago. Is that applicant here? The applicant is here. And Lanny, may we hear this? It's your case.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. This is case 2024-008234 HDRB for 106 Camino Santiago for a remodel with exceptions. 106 Camino Santiago is located in the Plaza del Monte compound in the northeast section. Plaza del Monte is a unique compound in the downtown and east side historic district. The communal living center was originally developed for retired members of the Presbyterian Church, starting in the late 1950s until 1977. The designs for the Spanish Pueblo Revival style buildings in mid-century modern design features are from Clark and Register. The circa 1965 residence at 106 Camino Santiago was constructed as part of the independent living section of Plaza del Monte and is likely the 3rd unit to have been constructed. The contributing structure is a 2,301 square foot L-shaped residence with a portal that wraps around the north and east elevations and has an attached carport on the southeast corner. The structure is a flat roofed with a stucco chimney in the northeast corner. The portal is constructed of vigas sitting on square girders held up by round posts with zappos type corbels. Small rectangular windows penetrate the bedroom wing. The remaining windows vary, including large picture and grouped casement and sliding units. The house is finished with textured cementitious stucco in a light brown tone and white paint under the portal. There's a small courtyard in the southwest corner of the residence, and the residence represents the original Clark and Register design template for the Plaza del Monte retirement homes. The residence came before the HDRB under case H-19-098A for a status review and was designated contributing because the structure is a good example of mid-century modern Santa Fe style and because of its association with Plaza del Monte, a master plan community by architects Clark and Register. The north and east elevations were designated as primary under the same case, and approval to re-roof the residence was issued in January of 2024. The applicant now proposes the following exterior alterations. We replace all windows with sliders. The proposed windows have a single center vertical mullion with a bronze trim. Window fenestrations will remain the same except for 2 windows, one on the west and one on the south. These 2 windows will be increased in size to meet the egress requirements. The new egress windows will not have the same muntin pattern as the long narrow windows on the west elevation. Several existing windows are non-conforming with greater than 30-inch light openings. These will be maintained in all windows except the egress windows. The light openings will be increased in the proposed egress windows. An exception is requested to replace windows on a primary facade per section 14-5.2D5AI. They would like to replace the east elevation exterior 3-light panel door and the single pane glass sliding rear patio door on the west elevation with similar styles in bronze color. Replace the 14 columns on the portal with 6-inch by 8-foot posts stained in dark brown called Coronado Gold Midnight Mahogany. An exception is requested to remove historic material per section 14-5.2D5B. Repair the vigas of the portal using epoxy and staining to match the existing color. And they will retain the square shape. Stucco, the residents using La Habra cementitious kokanee with the areas under the portal in colonial white to match the existing colors. Install a 324 square foot flagstone patio in the southwest corner of the residence in Colorado red flagstone. And construct a 5'6" or 66" fence with a pedestrian gate along the south and west edges of the patio to enclose the area. The fence and gate are at the rear of the residence where the maximum allowable height is 30 inches or 2 feet, 6 inches. They would like to install a ground-mounted HVAC condenser on the south of the residence and install a 3-foot-high coyote fence around the proposed HVAC condenser to conceal it from public view. Staff finds that the exception criteria have not been met for the replacement of the portal columns, and staff finds that the exception criteria have not been met for the window replacement, but the board may find that they have upon further testimony. Otherwise, staff recommends approval of the application as it complies with 14-5.2D, general design standards for all H districts, and 14-5.2E, downtown and east side design standards. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Clarification, the present windows are wood windows, is that correct?
Yes.
And was there a window evaluation and what was the conclusion?
There was a window assessment by Scott Cherry, and he found that all of the windows were in workable condition. They could be repaired. None of them were in bad enough condition to need to be replaced.
Yes, today on the field trip, I did feel that some of the windows were in very good condition, actually. Would you agree with that?
Yes, the report states them as all excellent condition.
And is the applicant wanting to replace them with metal clad as opposed to wood? I can ask the applicant when he comes forward.
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Also, in terms of the wall, which this is it's not really a compound, but it is a place that has about 27 units, I would say, is lots
28.
of independent units.
Yes.
And can you tell us if there are any walls in those surrounding any of those units? Today on the field trip, I really did not see any walls.
Plaza Del Monte has some very low retaining walls, mostly made out of stone and concrete. There are a few fences, but the fences tend to be in the rear of the buildings and around the compound as a whole. But there's not fences in the front yard.
And this is going to be, the proposal is for this wall to be in the back.
It's a fence, not a yard.
It's,
But yes,
oh, it's a fence.
it's coyote fence.
Oh, I got it. Okay. And the applicant wants it that high because there's going to be, you indicated there was going to be a park next door. That's a park for all the people within that compound.
Yes, it's a private park for the compound, and it's right next door to this backyard.
Thank you, Lanny. Anyone else needing clarification questions? Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lanny, for the presentation. And just to clarify the porch columns, the existing columns are round, thin, and tapered at the top. Is that correct?
I don't believe they taper at the top, but
Oh.
they're round.
Okay. And the applicant is proposing to replace them with square columns,
Round columns.
round columns?
Yeah.
Of the same dimension?
The pieces that are square are in the,
Roofing material, the shed roof.
right, it's part of the roof, but that's part of the wood that he's going to be fixing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just reading, replace 14 columns on the portal with 6x8 posts stained. It doesn't convey round to me. It may just be an error.
They're all round, but there's 14 of them wrapping around the entire house.
Member Beechey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lanny, is the front door that's proposed to be replaced historic, the 3-light panel door?
We don't actually know the age of that door.
Was it included in the assessment? Window assessment?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, Heather.
I'd just like to let the board know that in 2018, this was actually designated as a compound as part of the designation
Oh,
of
so it is
all the individual buildings.
Okay.
So yes, it is.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. Yeah. If there are no further questions, will the applicant please come forward and get sworn in?
Will you please raise your right hand and state your name and your address?
My name is Ted Chagaris. Address 24 Ridge Road in Santa Fe. It's actually out in the county.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you are about to reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do so under the penalties of perjury? Madam Chair, he has been sworn in.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, you have the floor. And what do you want to tell us about this project?
First, let me, if I may address the posts. All of there's 14 posts, one of which was replaced prior to my client's purchase some years before, I don't know. It's the one that if you look at the pictures, it's just to the left of the carport, to the right of the carport, and it's not stained, whoever put it up to. The posts, new posts will be 6 inches round by 8 feet tall, not 6 by 8 beams, so to speak. The reason we want to replace them is a structural issue. Virtually all of them are rotting at the bottom. They typically sit on a small round concrete base. The base in most of them is crumbling, and because they are rotting, any kind of bump or structure or would easily cause damage to them and possibly to the portal itself. New posts would be weather treated and stained properly to match the other colors that are there, and secured to the ground, to the concrete base that is there now, properly support the existing portal. That's why we want to replace them. They are all rotting, and that is an issue. I mean, if like where the carport is, if a car bumped even lightly one of those posts, it would collapse. Reality of it. So we would replace them with in kind, they would look exactly the same. Same thing with the windows. The windows will be, they're actually fiberglass frame. You from 5 feet away, you would not know the difference. They are Marvin windows, which are very high quality. They are double pane, thermal pane glass. The present windows are not. I did have Scott Cherry review the windows as requested. I know Scott from the Santa Fe Home Builders Association. We served on the board of directors together there. I know him to be a man of high integrity and very pride in kind of high efficiency homes that he builds. But he was wrong on these windows. They are not energy efficient. They do not open and close easily. There's only with a struggle that is done. The windows open on a wood carved track, top and bottom, and those tracks are worn. The windows rattle, and they are not excellent. I mean, that's what he said they were excellent, but they are not. I've been doing remodeling for over 33 years. I've replaced hundreds of windows here in Santa Fe and the county and all. And these are amongst the worst I have ever seen. And in my mind, there is no repairing them because they're not a window that even can be had or parts can be had for it. The lock sets on them are hard to operate. If you were there till you saw there's kind of a handle, and many of them, the handle is hard to turn and the tracks are loose and rattling. And he did say in his report that the insulation and the weather stripping was well below par, you know, but it's not the kind of thing that is fixable to me. So that's why I think we want the windows replaced. But the two egress windows to me also are important. That is a code issue. I know that as, you know, as a retrofit on older homes, it's not necessarily required, but I do believe as a fire and safety issue, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. So, and the homeowner is the same way. She wanted them for that reason, that they do provide safety measures. Other than that, I mean, the windows will look exactly the same. They're in the same dark, they call it a dark brown or dark bronze color. You will not know the difference from standing a few feet away. There'll be the same slider in operation and all that, but they will not have. But they will be energy efficient, so. And I think, you know, in today's climate environment, prices that is also very important, I believe. Increase the energy efficiency. When we had the roof replaced a few months back, about 5 or 6 inches of styrofoam was added to the roof before the new coating was put on top, increasing the energy efficiency, and that's something I'm very strong. One other thing is on the fencing around the back, we can forego that if that's an issue. That's not something we'd like to see, but it's not a major issue for us. The one thing, excuse me, that my client wanted was the house directly to the south. The front door faces kind of the back door of this house, 6. So she was looking for some cover on that side. If that can be done, great. If not, I'd put up a hedge there or something like that. Provide some coverage for people on the, you know, if they go out on the back porch of 106, they'd have a little bit of privacy. Right now, there really is a little bit of a hedge, very scruffy one that faces to the west towards the park area. That could be improved.
So with the exception of the egress windows, all windows that you're proposing will be the same size as the existing windows?
Exact same size, style. There will be sliders with the center posted.
Board members, other questions or comments? Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for clarifying a few of the points that the columns will be replaced in kind. And the explanation of particularly of the windows. I think, you know, one of the things that we're aware of in preservation is that, you know, material conservation is important, right? It's an important consideration in particularly in traditional architecture. Where things get a little bit more fuzzy is in mid-century architecture, where we often encounter windows, let's say, that were manufactured products that were understood to have a lifespan when they were specified and installed, and are not like the hand-hewn windows that you know, that evidence wear and paint layers and all that stuff that we commonly find in traditional architecture. I'm inclined in a lot of cases in mid-century architecture to allow for a material replacement when it's, you know, when it's warranted. And to me, that's kind of embedded in the period that we're talking about. You mentioned that these are going to be fiberglass windows. So these are not clad windows, aluminum clad or anything like that.
Clad fiberglass, they're wood on the interior.
Okay.
Like I said, they're Marvin windows. They are very high quality. And from the outside, you will not see any difference. Our goal is to keep the exterior looking the same. You know, we don't have an issue with trying to update, you know, make it a modern looking building, so to speak. It's just that like I said, the energy efficiency and the difficulty opening and closing these windows. When you were there, did anybody try to actually operate the windows? If they did, and I'll say especially to some of the ladies, I know the handles are very difficult to turn, and you have to kind of jerk the window open and kind of jerk it closed in order to make it work. That's how they are. Yeah, and I'll say this, these houses were built, of course, by the Presbyterian Church to house ministers. They were not expensive quality when they were built back in the 60s. Here they are, about 50, 60 years later. They have survived that, but I would not say they've survived it well, and to think they would go on for another 10 or 20 years, you know, they just won't make it.
Would you also clarify the windows that are changed, or that you're proposing to change the dimensions of for fire and life safety? Those are not on the primary facade,
No,
is that
they
correct?
one faces west, one faces south, and both of them are walls.
Thank you for clarifying. And I guess the last point would be about yard walls. And it seems to be a concern. We've talked about it with other proposed renovations, and I'm sure we'll talk about it some more with other proposals. Heather, would you clarify for me, like, I didn't understand that the compound designation was something that we've adopted, but it was only in draft form.
Rios, Member Guida, I will double check that, but it was my understanding that the compound designation was as such, and I'll double check the zoning map.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Even still, you know, the historic compound designation was discussed when we were reviewing status on these cases several years ago. You know, as potentially a suitable vehicle for understanding or for recognizing that this was a planned community. It wasn't built all at once, but it was kind of envisioned all at once and planned all at once, and then built in phases. We wound up, because that was not in place, to my memory, statusing houses individually, and now they have been sold off individually and subdivided. I think probably, you know, the description of a historic compound as it and what that means in Santa Fe, it doesn't line up very well with this particular development, but it is a planned community or a planned subdivision, and there are some considerations that should be made of part to whole, right? The idea that, you know, that the architects who worked on this development were thinking about the other buildings in the development. There's even though buildings kind of evolved over the years in their style and detailing, that there was an idea about consistency in the streetscape, consistency to some of the site walls. Lanny mentioned some of the concrete ones, the stone ones. A number of the houses, depending on their design, also have front yard walls that are stucco as well. That tend to be low, and then when there is a fence, it's in the backyard. I appreciate the concern about the privacy, the need for privacy for that back patio. The fence that you're proposing for the back patio, is that a coyote fence? Is it a coyote fence? Is it a 5 foot? Okay. You know, I guess my thought is, you know, and this is a kind of a comment for the board is, you know, should we be thinking about some kind of consistency in how walls get constructed in this community? I think the prescriptive standard, I think, was mentioned in Lanny's report. The 30 inches is the allowable height. I mean, that's a little silly. But you know, I think, you know, if we're going to, and if we're going to recognize the need for taller privacy screens, we should think about what that height is. But I also think we should think about the materiality of that. I'd hate for this to be a kind of unconsidered adoption of coyote fences and whatever kind of everywhere. And it's not to kind of mandate a look, but I'm wondering, you know, a lot of the discussion that we had with another applicant in this community was designing the new wall in a way that it made sense with the architecture of the complex. And so to me, you know, and in that case, there was a stone wall nearby, there was a stucco wall nearby, and I think we landed on stucco. Would you be willing to consider a stucco privacy wall for the patio?
Well, it would be if that was the case. The north side of the property of the compound itself, which borders on Fort Marcy,
Mhm.
that is a coyote fence there.
Okay.
There's a bit of a retaining wall that's about 2 or 3 feet high, and then the coyote fence sits on top of that. So there is that.
Okay. And like, as I remember, a chain link fence kind of attached to it, right? Like-
There's a chain link
Yeah.
fence on the south side, which is kind of behind
Yeah.
the new senior center there. That's all. There is a chain link. That's but like I said, you know, if the coyote fence, I mean, a yard wall structure would probably be a lot more expensive, and the client may just want to go with maybe some plantings up there. But seeing that.
Right.
That to us is not a major issue.
Understood. I think I would be in, you know, just in general, I mean, as based on the application, I'd be inclined to find the exception criteria have been met in the case of the windows and of the columns and posts based on the considerations of the architecture and the age and testimony. But I do think that there should be a kind of thoughtful design behind the yard wall. I think that's something that we could put into the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Member Guida. Any other comments or questions from board members? Member Beachside.
Yeah, just a point for the board's consideration. I think typically when historic windows are in good condition and on primary facades, we require the repair rather than replacement. And so on this building has 2 primary facades with quite a few windows under portals, like on at least one facade. Maybe both actually. I just wanted to raise that as what we've done with other clients. And then with respect to the door that's to be replaced, that is included in the window and door assessment, and it's listed in good condition.
Client wants to keep the front door that is there.
Okay,
The side door, which is visible on the lower, that goes into the kitchen, and that's in pretty rough shape. The windows were all loose in it. It's not an insulated door. It's actually a hollow door, not insulated at all. So we would like to replace that again with the same look, but with a door that would be insulated and seal more securely.
okay. So the 3-light panel would be, you'll use the 3-light panel
Yeah,
door.
we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to ask if the public has anything to say. If you have any comments on this particular case, come forward. You will have to get sworn in.
Will you please state your name, raise your right hand, and give us your address?
Stephanie, excuse me, Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Stephanie, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you are about to give in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do so under penalties of the perjury?
Yes.
Madam Chair, she's been sworn in.
So I agree with much of what Member Guida said. And I think that if there's a need for an access window, I think that should be granted, especially if it's not on primary facades. I do agree with Member Bescheid, however, that the norm is repair of windows on primary facades. And some of those do sound like they've under portals where they're more protected. And it just seems like a little bit of a bias against mid-20th century modern windows in particular that I don't know if you'll ever get over. And again, if the door is really rattly and needs to be replaced, I think that's fine because it's going to be replaced in kind. And I do think, again, there's with the beams on the portal too, the same, that there is consideration for continuing the look while having structural integrity. I am concerned about the fencing. And I do appreciate that the applicant said that the owner would be okay with like a living fence that is hedges or something like that. I could see where you would want some perhaps privacy from a park, but being on a park is also an amenity. So again, I do think there needs to be thoughtful consideration and not just ad hoc decision-making on the fencing. And I do believe that staff's statement about it 30 inches high is actually probably accurate because this was an open community. They did not really have, I mean, they had small yard walls that were kind of like retaining walls. And that was really actually common in many parts of Santa Fe, where you had these like 32-inch walls that just kind of defined your space a little bit, but didn't shut people out. So thank you for thoughtful consideration of that.
Thank you, Stephanie. It appears that John Eddie's coming forward to comment, and he will get sworn in.
Can you please raise your right hand, state your name, and recite your address?
The person that is swearing you in is within the building, but not right here.
Felt like
So
I was in
it is
Wizard
not
of
a
Oz
ghost.
all of a sudden. Yes,
State your name and your address, please.
my name is John Eddy. My address is number 14 Avenida Campo Verde, Santa Fe.
John, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do so under the penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
You have been sworn in.
Thank you. Madam Chair, board members. One thing I wanted to get clarification on, I didn't have the ability to access this on my computer, but in one of the drawings, there is a large window. Perhaps this can be brought up and we can look at that elevation.
Yeah, that large picture window, is that remaining?
Okay, thank you. Does that window have snap-in mullions? And that's the original window for the house as far as we know.
Sir, you're going to have to speak right into the mic because then the recorder can't get
Not
everything.
sure that portion of the building from inside to me looks like it was almost an addition, as though that was part of the carport at one point. There was, there was a drop ceiling, which we took out and exposed existing vigas and a polished finished ceiling, wood ceiling above it that was already there. In the back of that wall, the opposite, the west end, there is a vinyl sliding patio door, obviously not original to 1960. So I don't know if this window was added at that time as well, but it seems to me that structure, that portion of the building is different from the rest of the building itself. So to me, it may have been added on. Like I said, there may have been a two-car carport there originally, and they enclosed that one portion of it.
And that picture window, sir, the picture window is remaining or you're proposing to replace?
It would be replaced also with a thermal pane window, exactly the same size again.
And can you describe the window pattern,
The
the proposed window pattern?
pattern would be just an open panel window.
Oh, so it's just going to be all glass?
All glass.
Okay.
I mean, if you know, it doesn't have any mullions or anything in it now. They could be added, but I don't know if that really has any, would have any benefit to it.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Eddy.
So we'll reset the clock, I'm sure. So that would be a non-conforming window, would it not? as it exists now? I'm asking staff.
Heather, can you answer that?
Thank you, Chair Rios. Members of the board, the existing window would, I'm not sure that we have any evidence as to permits, but it would likely not be the original window. As part of the Hickey research, there were no front facade photographs, so due to a lack of evidence, a replacement in kind is okay. We don't want to be conjecture. We don't want to have conjecture as to what was before. And also non-divided light windows are permitted.
Of that size.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I wanted to mention the posts being replaced. The dimension of the post, I would hope, would not exceed the beam that they are supporting. And make it clear in the application that that would be the case, so that there is no tapering going up to a smaller beam supporting above. That point. That makes sense to the board? And to the
Sure, and
applicant?
can you answer that? Is that, and everybody's referring to these as posts. I'm referring to them, I saw the one that was replaced. It's a Viga. I see that as a Viga, but anyway, post Viga, but anyway,
Typically, Vigas are the horizontal ones that up on the ceiling.
that looked like the one that you replaced that hasn't been stained, looked like a Viga to me. But at any rate, is that going to have that pencil sharpened top or just go straight up?
They really don't now. There's maybe a tiny bit of taper, but they're basically 6 inches all the way up. And that's what we would replace with. They attach to a corbel, and then the corbel supports the beam.
Yeah, and the existing Vigas, they don't have that tapered look, do they?
No, they
Okay.
attach to it. There's a
Right,
corbel.
so they should be,
The width of the corbel is 6 inches, so they sit right up on.
right, you should try to replicate if the board so indicates that they should replicate what is there, if that's the route that the board is going to take. Board members, Mr. Eddie, did you finish your comments?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members.
Thank you. Anyone else in this audience wishing to comment on this particular case? No. Heather, someone on Zoom?
One moment. And I also have another thing, a response to earlier question after take a look at Zoom. No, Chair Rios. And with reference to the response, like member Bienvenu, I'm sorry, member Beachside pointed out, the doors are listed in the window and door assessment and their conditions. So that's a good reference. The proposed window that is being replaced on the west elevation for egress purposes is not divided. It might be something the board could consider is to have a division similar to the pattern that's there now, but just a larger window. But the mutton pattern could be similar to what is there right now. So if the board were to consider an exception or consider that, you may consider that as part of your decision making.
Thank you. Member Guida?
Maybe this is best put to the applicant. I'm confused. Are there divided light windows in this project? The existing windows do not have divided lights, is that correct? Okay,
The center mullion, which is
the slider, right? Those are panes, right? So in my view, we shouldn't be, even though they may be applicable to the district standards. This is a mid-century building. It was designed like the other ones in the complex to have non-divided light windows, whether those are picture windows or sliders. We should not be applying that to this particular project.
Yes, Heather.
Arios, member Guida, the only reference I was considering is to have a similar pattern right now. The windows are sort of narrow and in their size do comply with that 30-inch rule. So it's just to have, to make the window larger, consider a light pattern that would be similar to just a double of that window. So it's up to the board, certainly. Oh, and with reference to the compound designation, there was a development plan that was approved. I was like looking on the development plan to see if there were any specific notes regarding a compound. So I don't have an answer on the compound. I'd have to go back and look at some minutes, but for right now, there was a development that was
Thank you.
approved by the planning commission.
And I would make a suggestion to the maker of the motion that they not, that we revisit whether it's a fence or a wall. I would suggest that you indicate that in your motion, but you may have a better solution than that. With that being said, if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion. Anybody? Member Beachside?
Not quite ready for a motion yet, but I just wanted to revisit the wall or fence issue. And I think that because the applicant is quite cooperative in this case and willing to postpone that part of the application, I think it might be a better approach for us to see how other properties come before us and we've already approved one wall that I think was 5 feet or maybe 4.5 feet in height.
It was really low.
Low with some fenestration required and some curvature. And I think I agree with Member Guida that sort of approving these piecemeal for a compound look, it's going to be problematic. And if we can postpone some of those decisions and have applicants come back and create walls that are compatible with their common neighbors, that might be.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I do. And I will entertain a motion at this time. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case 2024-008-234 HDRB 106 Camino Santiago, I move that the board approve the project with the following notes, that the proposed replacement of columns on the portal are 6-inch diameter round, and that they are replacements in kind of the existing columns. And finding that for that particular item, the exception criteria have been met for replacement. For the windows, that the windows are as proposed to be replaced with fiberglass clad wood windows matching in style and function and fenestration the existing windows in all cases, finding that the exception criteria have been met on that, and clarifying that no divided lights will be required anywhere because they do not exist now. Lastly, postponing a decision on both the patio screen wall fence and the mechanical screen wall fence until such a time that there is more clarity on the design language of walls at Plaza Del Monte. And noting that, that in cases where we've approved one before, it has been based on a harmony with existing walls as built on the site, be it stone walls, tapered as they go up, stucco walls with radiused corners, that kind of straight line, gentle radius move. I think that's it, but I may not have forgotten something.
Do I hear a second to this motion?
Each I will second and maybe suggest a couple of friendly amendments or discussion points. One friendly amendment would be for the 3-light panel door on the east elevation to be replaced in kind, the same fenestration. And
Accepted as friendly?
the other is to require the windows on the primary elevations, the north and east, to be repaired as opposed to replaced noting that insulated glass may be used.
Repeat the last part. that you said.
The insulated glass could be, the glass could be replaced with insulated glass, but the frame should remain.
On that point, may I ask the applicant a question? Is it feasible to replace the plate glass that's in those windows with insulated glass units?
Excuse me, the frames are made so it's just a single pane of glass, which is maybe an eighth of an inch thick. Without major reconstruction, and I don't know who would do that. You know, the frames themselves, the sashes, which is the window part that holds the glass, have to be completely rebuilt. And I don't see that again as a solution, because the windows, the tracks, the gasketing, all that is substandard to begin with. And again, these are like 60-year-old windows. And putting thermal pane glass in them only addresses a part of the issue, and they're still going to be difficult to open and close. Cracks that are grooved into the wood, top and bottom, are worn. You know, those are kinds of things that cannot be fixed. Like I said, I've been doing this for 33 years, and I've not seen windows like that could be fixed. On like a double hung window, you might be able to put a storm window on the inside or on the outside. You can't do that with these. On the outside, it would alter the appearance of the windows. On the inside, you could not open it. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't solve the problem.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Member Beach, just my thought on that too. I mean, generally, I would agree with the thought of retaining those on a primary facade, if the characteristics of the window themselves were the character defining features. You know, in mid-century cases, there are instances where we've seen metal window casements where that's no longer made anymore. Repairing those or retaining those is vital. In this particular case, it is going back with a wood window. It just has fiberglass on the outside instead of paint. We're essentially replacing in kind, but doing so in a feasible way with insulated glass. So to me, that satisfies the exception criteria for removing them on a.
Yeah, that's helpful.
primary.
Yeah. Thank you for those comments. I appreciate
Okay.
that. Yeah, just wanted to discuss that because it's a sort of a precedent we've had with other styles of homes. So I'll withdraw that second friendly amendment. That's all I have.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other comments or amendments? No others? Roll call vote, please.
Chair Guida,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Valdo,
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion as posed.
Thank you very much. And thank you, sir. Good luck on that project. And I'm glad that compound is getting developed. I think it's going to be great when all of those units get developed. Next case is located at 711 Don Cubero Alley. Applicants here? Applicants are here. And this is Paul's case. So Paul, may we hear from you, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Just like to take a moment and thank Member Valdo for his time and service with the city of Santa Fe and with the HDRB. Thank you, sir. We greatly appreciate you. Here in case number 2024-008226 HDRB, 711 Don Cubero Alley is a single-family residence listed as contributing with the north facade as primary to the Don Gaspar Area Historic District. The structure was built in the early 1900s, consisting of 2 bedrooms and comprising of 1,602 square feet. The architectural design of the structure is a modest, quintessential Santa Fe vernacular style, as seen by the original rectangular shape and footprint, adobe block construction material, recessed doors and windows, and flat roof with rounded parapets. The structure has evolved through time, which can be seen from the rooftop and southern facade. General maintenance and repair have changed the original doors and windows of the structure, and the addition of the sunroom has transformed the southern facade. Given that the HDRB upgraded the status to contributing at 711 Don Cabero Alley, the new addition design does not accentuate what the board is trying to preserve. The new design detracts from the modest and simple architectural design elements which the original structure currently expresses. The new design is significantly higher, has more fenestration and design elements than the original structure, and creates an imbalance to the streetscape. Here we have the overview photo, the north elevation wall with coyote fence, and the east elevation with the coyote fence. The applicant is proposing as a retroactive in this application for the construction of this 6-foot coyote fence on both the north facade and the east facade. Here we have the elevation of the south elevation showing the sunroom, and the west elevation showing the block wall and into their courtyard. Here we have a historic photograph from 1912 showing the original footprint of the structure. Here we have a 1930 Sanborn map courtesy of Murphy in 2024 of the development of the structure. Here we have a 1978 aerial map showing the extent of the structure, so we know that the sunroom is post 1978. Here's a site plan of the property where the addition will take place, the renovation, no impact to the original footprint of the property. Here we have the existing and proposed floor plans. There is no impact to the northern primary facade, and all the work will be taking place where the existing sunroom is located. In that, the demolition of the wall of the existing enclosed 224 square foot sunroom. It'll be remodeled 225 square feet with a 14-foot high framed stucco structure using existing footings. The applicant proposes to reuse the existing front door and construct two 30-inch by 48-inch casement windows with colonial grid panels at 3 feet high from the ground on the west facade. So here we have the northern facade, the existing and proposed elevations showing the coyote fencing. There will be no impact to the primary facade. Here is a section of the northern facade. Here we have the existing and proposed east elevation showing the coyote fencing as well, and the extent of the roofscape of the new addition. Here we have the existing and proposed east elevation section photos. This will show you, this shows the overhang construct a 16-inch high by 12-foot wide by 2 feet deep back awning and decorative historic corbels on the east facade. Let's see, construct one 30-inch by 30-inch casement window with colonial grid panels at 4 feet high from the ground on the east and south facades. Here we see that colonial grid window, along with 2 canales, rounded pyramid pits with fenestration, and as well as a kiva fireplace in between the eastern facade and the tucked in with the southern facade tucked in that corner. Here we have the existing and proposed south elevation photos, overview photos with the wall. Here we have the existing and proposed south elevation section photos showing the new addition with the 30 by 30-inch colonial grid windows, the vigas, the elemented vigas, canali, and kiva fireplace. Here we have the existing and proposed west elevation photos showing an overview of what the structure looks. Here we have the existing and proposed west elevation section photos showing the construction of the 30-inch by 48-inch casement windows with colonial grid, the viga elements, the wooden door, and the rounded parapets with fenestration and canales. Here is a proposed rendering of the north and east facades, which I believe the applicant did a really good job. And here is a proposed rendering of the south and west facades. Staff does not recommend approval of the proposed project, but upon further testimony of the applicant, the board may find that the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2H, Don Gaspar area historic district design standards. Staff stands for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, how much taller is the proposed building in relation to the existing building?
Madam Chair, approximately 4 feet.
4 feet. And is the proposed building the same size as the same footprint as the sunroom?
Madam Chair, that is correct.
And do you know the interior ceiling height of the proposed building?
Madam Chair, I believe the existing height at floor level in that sunroom is 11 feet. From
11 feet?
floor to ceiling. And so this would be a clear story, something that added 3 feet.
Thank you. Other questions? Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Paul. So just a question for you, Paul. Does this, I may agree with your design assessment of what's being proposed on many fronts. But does the project otherwise meet the district standards?
Chair Rios, Member Guida, it does.
And that would be inclusive of the windows that are on the wall where there's the portal, that we're not violating the distance from the corner rule in that case?
Chair Rios, Member Guida, that is correct.
Okay, so no exceptions would be required. We're meeting district standards and that's objectively true. Okay.
Chair Rios, Member Guida, that is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Any other questions for Paul? Anybody? Yes, Member Bichai.
Thank you. Paul, could you just clarify the maximum allowable height? Here was a height calculation done.
Chair Rios, Member Beachite, the height calculation for this property was 15 foot 3 inches.
The coyote fence that's there, does that comply with the maximum allowable wall height?
Chair Rios, Member Beachite, that is correct, 6 feet.
Thank you.
Is that it? No? Okay, applicant or applicants, please come forward and get sworn in.
Can you both please raise your right hand, state your names, and then recite your address?
Land and Lot, 711 Don Cubero Alley.
Bridget Stanga, 711 Don Cubero Alley.
Do you both solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do so under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Madam Chair, they've been sworn in.
Thank you very much. You have the floor. What do you want to tell us about your project?
Thank you for having us. First and foremost, my wife and I moved here a little under 2 years ago with the intention of growing as a family and choosing this as the place out of everywhere else in the United States that we wanted to do that. The particular home that we're asking for a renovation on is the home that we picked specifically to do that. So we were very insistent that this was the house that we wanted to grow in. Currently, the 225 square feet patio is uninhabitable. It's very hot in the summer and it's very cold in the winter. It's single pane windows that when we purchased the home, the survey said that all of those windows need to be replaced. Thank you, Paul. The renovation that we're asking for is the same footprints. We're using the same exact footings as to not have any additional impact on the property more than what we feel like is necessary. And I feel like the design that we came with reflects where Don Cubero Alley was when this property was built in the early 1900s, where it currently is now, and where it may be going forward. And we were very insistent of not touching the northern facade, which is our primary contributing facade. This kind of gets to the question of objectivity and subjectivity, because all of the guidelines that I've looked at online provided by the historic district have been followed. The height demands that were given to me on September 21st, 2023 by Paul was, and again, like I just wanted to take a minute to thank Paul and the entire board throughout this process. To get here has taken a long, arduous path. And out of everybody along that path, Paul has been by far the most helpful. So genuinely, thank you very much. Although I disagree with you. But this gets to the question of objectivity and subjectivity. So if subjectivity is brought into account, I don't really know what we could have done along this process of designing this renovation that we could have done differently. I feel like the vigas that are on our home on the renovation, yes, there are no vigas currently on our property, but if you go down Don Cubero Alley, almost every single property has vigas that are exposed on the exterior. The fenestrations that we have, again, just walking down the street, I think this design really kind of tries to mend where the street is currently and where our home is currently. And we really want to stay in this home. And I think the home currently needs some renovation to be taken place. The enclosed patio needs to be replaced. And this is the plan that we would like to follow through with. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that a key result of this renovation is taking a non-conforming structure that's uninhabitable and transforming it into something that really contributes to the beauty of Don Cubero Alley. And sort of, you know, it's rejuvenation in a way. You guys were there on the site visit today. You saw the sort of, you know, interesting location that we're in. We're right across the street from Cerrillos, but then we have the Don Gaspar Historic District all behind us. And we're kind of this, you know, interim property, I would say. And I think, you know, we really have the opportunity to really take things up a notch with this street and really contribute to the overall beautification of the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Board members, do you have questions or comments for the applicants, for the owners? They don't seem to have any questions or comments right at the moment, but I'm sure that they will have some in a while. Anyone in this room wishing to come and comment on this particular project? Come forward. Stephanie Beninato, she's already been sworn in.
Stephanie Beninato. I appreciate that the owners want to renovate the property and that the sunroom is not as usable as they want it to be, and it's not on a primary facade. I wish the 6-foot fence, I know they can go up that high, but I wish it was somewhat lower, since they do sort of block the view of the building, which is part of why we have historic zones. And I just feel like, I know there, I mean, the idea of harmony with the streetscape is, I think, the part of the discussion that needs to happen. And Don Cubero Alley itself is a rather unpretentious, small buildings. And I just feel like, although the height is the height calculation, it makes it overwhelm the rest of the building, and also, I think, the streetscape itself. And perhaps the height could be lowered down, so that it wouldn't be so intrusive into the streetscape, because I do feel like it is. I just don't even know where you get 15 feet from, because again, when I look at those buildings on Don Cubero, they're very low. They're all 1 story as far as I can tell. So they must be some of the other buildings that are in that area that are not in the historic zone, I suppose, in that calculation. And that, that to me is the thing that I object to in this project, is how overwhelming the addition is, not only to the building itself, but to the streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And John Eddie's coming forward, and he's already been sworn in as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. I do agree with Ms. Benanato to a degree. And I find that the addition, I totally am supportive of the idea that they're building on the original footprint and they're not trying to expand from that. And I can see that getting away from this sunroom is going to be a really good move. But I do find the height a little jarring on their addition. And I find the addition of Vigas a little bit jarring as well. And I would like to have a concerted discussion with the board over that. The height may be approved as is, but I do find that it's a little inconsistent with the character of the house. So I defer to you folks and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Anyone else in this audience wanting to come down and make a comment? It appears not. Anyone on Zoom?
No, Chair Rios.
And the applicant wants to say something.
I just wanted to add that in regard to the height and it being somewhat jarring, I just want to put on record that we disagree. If you look at our house and then the properties immediately adjacent to it, that were actually originally part of the 7-Eleven Don Cubero property itself, but were renovated in 2011. They're actually taller than what we're proposing, so it wouldn't be like a sudden height increase. It would be somewhere in the middle between the height that is now and the height of our immediate neighbors.
Thank you. Paul, I have a question for you.
Yes, Chair Rios.
Would you describe that streetscape, please?
Chair Rios, this is a beautiful streetscape, but it differs quite ununiformly. So you have this beautiful home here at 7-Eleven Don Cubero. Their next door neighbor, directly due south, is a condo townhome that is 15 feet 6 inches high. It is massive compared to what this older home is. And then the next street over there is an addition of a very similar 15-foot home. And then you have an older home, something lower, flat roofed pitch, which you would reminiscent of Don Cubero Alley. So you have quite a range of structures on this streetscape.
But would you say most of them are of a lower height? There was the one next door that is higher than this proposal. But would you say I would say that was an eclectic type of homes there, different styles and different heights. And would you say most of them are more compatible to the existing house?
Chair
Would you-
Rios, I would agree with that. Yes, ma'am.
So I will ask the owners, did you give any consideration to lowering that, your proposal?
The guidelines that we got were that the maximum allowance height on our property was 15 foot 5 inches on September 13th, 2023. I thought that was too much because I agree. I think it dominates the landscape with 15 foot 6 inch structures. So we took it down to 14 feet, which is our proposed plan. So we've already reduced our maximum allowance height by 1.5 feet. The main reason for this height is because of the interior footprint. You're stepping into the building or into the vestibule, and to fit an extra bedroom, it became quite jarring. It became quite jarring if you just enter a room that's at such a lower height. The architectural language with a skylight just made the room seem bigger than it actually was. And also because of the slant in the roof, the plans that I currently have don't take into account the grade on the property. So even though the plan shows that one side of the property is at 10 feet, it's actually at 11'2" due to the grade. And this was just drawings that I created for this meeting.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any other questions or comments? Yes, Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did you all do the design for this?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
So I'm going to say a few things, and I don't want to disparage, what is quite obviously a considerable effort in doing a set of drawings that is more than what we typically call for, right? You've provided, in addition to the elevations and plans, a set of renderings and 3D views of the property. So it's always good for the board to see that. I would share your frustration if I encountered such a prescriptive code and adhered to its prescription and came up with a design that meets the district standards for height, for all the other detailing that's included in there. And I would suggest that for staff, generally speaking, that we should be not opposing things that meet the requirements of the code. We may caveat them with some concerns, but generally speaking, the staff report, in my view, should recommend approval subject to the board's discussion. That said, I think that the design and what's in the purview of the board and not necessarily written and can't be written into the code is the idea that we're looking at conditions of compatibility and harmony, both with the architecture that is designated as contributing, as well as the notion of the streetscape. And those compatibility and harmony terms are somewhat subjective. But I would counter your binary that things are either subjective or objective. They're not. I mean, the board is charged with determining what those things are. And it could go very awry. Harmony could be applied to the types of people who live in these communities, and there have been cases where that has happened in historic preservation. And we're not talking about that. I think what we're talking about is an idea of there is some element of subjectivity, but as an architect, I wouldn't want to suggest that the training I have, years of experience, all my other colleagues who practice design, that it's just subjective. So it's maybe rather than that binary, I would express it as judgment. This board has the authority to look at these things and assess whether a proposed project is compatible with what we found as historically significant or compatible with that streetscape. And that's where we're coming from on this, and certainly where I'm coming from on this. I think the proposed building, because it may have some commonality with the heights of surrounding buildings. It may have some detailing that's common to other buildings. But I don't believe that what's being proposed is compatible with the existing structure here. And it's not a matter of objective height. I think you could design a two-story addition in this space that would be compatible. It really is about the detailing and the mass and the proportion of what's being proposed. The crenellation on the parapet, the kind of Viga doodads on the outside of the building, the crowdedness of the windows and the doors in the portal. I think they're all not compatible.
Member
with-
Guida, I'm going to interrupt you, sorry. Only because, could you please, who's ever responsible, put up the existing and the proposed so that we can keep studying this as Member Guida is speaking? And sorry for the interruption.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And I say that, and I say this not to be harsh, it does look a little cartoonish, Santa Fe style, and kind of tacked onto the building. And I don't have a lot of suggestions for you for a way to move forward. It certainly shouldn't be the case that you have to hire an expensive architect to do these types of projects in our historic districts. But I think, maybe through the discussion tonight, the board can provide some guidance for a revised design in this case. It may be that the parapets, that the overall height of the building does need to be reduced. But I think overwhelmingly the simplicity of what's being proposed needs to be carried out. It's a lot of stuff in a very small space, right? It's a compressed portal. It's only 2 or 3 feet deep. It's got all the Santa Fe cues. Like I said, it meets the district standards, but I'm not finding it to be compatible with the architecture of the building or of the streetscape.
Thank you, Member Guida. Any other comments or questions? Member Biche.
Madam Chair. Yeah, no, I applaud the way that you preserved the north facade, your primary facade, and you've focused on the back of the property. I think that's absolutely the way to go. And I do agree with a lot of Member Guida's comments. I kind of think, like what we typically look for in an addition with respect to height is something that's not drastically different from what you have in your existing house. I kind of think the height of the portal is a better height. And I wouldn't even mind if you needed to make that room larger, to compensate for a reduction in height, and a better feel for the space of the room. I agree on the front. I like that you've reused the front door, but the addition of the windows does seem like a lot compared to the sort of sparse fenestration you have on the rest of the house. You might consider side lights on either side of a front door instead of full windows there. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you need to do something with the sunroom. That doesn't add anything to your house either in terms of a characteristic or asset to its harmony. But this doesn't quite get there either.
Anything further, board members? I just want to say, I see what direction this board is moving towards. And I just want to tell you, don't get discouraged. I think the two of you are people that came before us before for the historic status, and you gave us your story. And again, you told us this evening, that's the house you chose, and you want to make the best place for yourselves in that area. And you are your own designer. And if you listen to what this board has to say, I think that you will accomplish probably what will be more in harmony and compatible to that neighborhood. With that being said, I will entertain a motion. Yes, Babicha.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I guess I just would like to ask the applicant, are you willing to redesign and come back? Is that, we don't want to, we can postpone this case for a redesign have you come back with an adjusted proposal that considers some of the comments we've made. The other option is to deny, which requires you to rethink it entirely and reapply. Also, I should say that if we deny it, you can also take the decision to city council for reconsideration.
We'll come back with another design, taking into account that y'all's considerations. That's you guys recommend that approach?
And should we do this for a date certain, Heather?
Chair Rios, Member Beachside, the next hearing will be June 11th, which affords a little extra time since we had a cancellation of a meeting. So in order to get it into the packet and have Paul have sufficient time to review, I would imagine by June 1st, which is like 15 days, we would need a revised design.
Does that give you enough time?
That's not possible with my current work schedule, unfortunately.
Okay, so then we just postpone it.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beachside, you have the floor.
In case number 2024-008-226 HDRB at 711 Don Cabero Alley, I move to postpone this case for a redesign and a resubmittal whenever you're ready.
And do I hear a second?
Guido will second.
Is there anything further? Nothing further?
If,
Oh.
does the board feel we provided adequate guidance for the redesign?
I guess that's a question for the applicant, and we could try to be more precise in the motion.
How high should it be?
So, again, I don't want to suggest that that's subjective, but it is a matter of judgment, right? There's a way to do this within the allowable height. But some suggestions for the redesign, all of which should be coordinated in the design process. I think the board has expressed that overall height is a concern. And that, potentially reducing the overall height of the addition would be preferable. I think removing the steps in the parapet would be another item for the redesign. Just less stuff, whether that's doodads of vigas or the projecting lip or roof on the rear of the addition. Perhaps even if there's not enough room for a full portal on the building, if that's quite compressed, maybe that kind of bracketed roof projection over a door might be the thing to do. I would also say that, maybe it's not necessary to have the symmetry of windows on both sides of a door, because that's not part of the language of the existing building, that kind of grandiosity and symmetry. These are things that I would suggest as part of a redesign, a kind of a simplification and slight reduction in height, and a reconsideration of the detailing of the portal as hopefully being helpful.
Thank you for those comments. Yeah, I think that reducing the height and making the building more simple, more compatible with the existing contributing building.
I would add that I know our code specifies divided light windows, but your existing windows are not, and it might be worth considering an exception to use windows that are more consistent with what you already have. So with that, I'll restate the motion as a postponement for redesign, considering the input we just provided and whatever additional staff assistance they might need.
Guido will second again.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Guido,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Valdo,
Yes.
Member Beachside.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has passed.
Thank you. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Next case is located at 650A Old Santa Fe Trail. This is Ramon's case. The applicant is here, I'm going to guess. The applicant is here. Ramon.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is case number 2024-008198-HDRB for a downgrade from contributing to non-contributing for an accessory shed at 650A Old Santa Fe Trail. The property is kind of unique because it straddles the downtown east side and the Don Gaspar area historic districts. The shed is actually in the Don Gaspar Area Historic District. The site is shown here outlined in red, and the shed to the west under consideration for a downgrade is outlined in blue. The shed is contributing to the Don Gaspar Area Historic District, and the east facade is primary. The existing site plan. This is a view from the sidewalk at Old Santa Fe Trail, and you can see just a portion of the original shed is visible beyond the red car. These are photos of the existing shed's elevation. The original adobe structure is estimated to have been built between 1912 and 1928. The wood additions and the shed roof that's been added to the top was estimated to be constructed in the 1980s. This is a shot of the interior of the original shed showing the Viga and adobe construction. You may recall that this structure was brought before the board in February when the applicant put a lot of work into trying to squeeze in an additional dwelling unit, keeping the original facade, primary facade, and adding a second story. And then that case was denied due to height restrictions. And the board at that time suggested that perhaps you might want to come back with a case to downgrade contributing status, so that it would give him a little bit more freedom to make renovations, but it's my understanding that he still intends to keep the original shed structure. So with that, as the structure has very limited public visibility from Old Santa Fe Trail and none from Don Gaspar Area Historic District to which it belongs, staff recommends the historic status of the structure be downgraded to non-contributing to per 14-5.2C designation of significant and contributing structures. With that, I can take questions.
Thank you, Ramon. Would you kindly put up the picture, the photo of the, no, not that, yes. Okay, so this is interesting that part of this property, the home, is in one district, the downtown east side, and then this building that we are looking at, the shed building, is in the Don Gaspar area. That's very interesting. Would you describe to us that brick coping, and can you also tell us, maybe this is a better question for the applicant, why that roof was put on there?
That would be a question, Madam Chair. The roof would be a question for the applicant, but I believe that was put on in the 80s prior to the current owners owning the house. The brick coping is quite unique. It's got 3 courses with a dentile pattern in the middle course. And I believe that in the packet that was supplied to you, that kind of remarkable feature was called out in the meeting minutes from when this was status as contributing in 2018.
Thank you, Ramon. Any other questions for Ramon? No. Applicant, please come forward. And you're going to get.
Can you please raise your right hand, state your name and recite your address? Will you please speak into the microphone? Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have referenced to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do so under the penalties of perjury?
Is that mic on?
Seems like it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Um,
I'll yell.
Oh, okay. So what do you have to tell us about this? And why do you feel
Just
that it
thanks for the
should be
consideration
downgraded?
at our previous meeting. Suggestion was made that this might help us alleviate some of our problems with trying to do an addition, because this contributing building is so close to the property lines and setbacks that there's no way to really do any significant additions without impeding on the primary facade setback. So we're here to follow along with the instructions and make our way to an improvable plan eventually. We are not intending to demo this structure. We're going to restore it. We're going to remove all of the stuff that's been added to it in the 80s, like the roof. The roof is a shed roof that was put on, I assume, to protect the failing actual flat roof that's under there. And that's where the raccoons live right now, between the two roofs.
Board members, do you have questions for the applicant? No questions? Anyone in the audience wanting to comment on this particular project? If you want to comment, come forward.
Stephanie Benanato, I just think it's a beautiful structure. And I hope the brick coping will be preserved to some extent. I can understand that it's not visible in the district that it's in, or really even from Old Santa Fe Trail. But I'm not sure that that's just the only consideration. I mean, it is its original footprint, et cetera. And the coping actually makes it quite special. However, I can also understand the owners wanting to make it more productive, and I appreciate that they want to maintain the structure itself and will be adding on to it, but not destroying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else in this audience wishing to comment? No one else? Anyone on Zoom?
No, Chair Rios.
Board members, I will entertain a motion. You didn't have any questions, and I will entertain a motion. Someone,
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Member Bichai.
Thank you. In case 2024-008198 HDRB at 650A Old Santa Fe Trail, I move to approve the application to downgrade the status of the structure to non-contributing, consistent with staff's recommendation.
All those seconds.
Is there anything further to add? Nothing further? Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Guida,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion is
Thank you very
passed.
much. I have one last question for the applicant. The dogs, are they as
They did
mean?
their job.
Are they as mean as their bite? I mean,
No,
their
they're not.
bark?
If they had been let out, they would have just
Oh.
been giving you kisses. but
Oh, really?
They want to let people know that there's some.
They were really protecting that property.
I'm
Okay.
sorry that they barked at you.
Oh, thank you. And the last case this evening is located at 723 Old Santa Fe Trail, and is that applicant here? The applicant's here. Ramon, may we hear from you?
Madam Chair and members of the board, this is case 2023-008110-HDRB 723 Old Santa Fe Trail. The applicant seeks approval for renovations. You may recall that this structure was brought before the board recently and was given the status as contributing with 3 primary facades, and I will explain to you where those are. This is a view of the entrance courtyard showing the west and east elevations. An exception is requested to 14-5.2D, 2D for an addition of a new portal to a primary facade. And that would be the portal that you see on the right of the structure. This is a single-family home in the downtown and east side historic district. It's just east of Old Santa Fe Trail and north of Old Pecos Trail. That word diverges right there. Okay, I talked to about it was case 2023-007605-HDRB that it was designated as contributing. The north elevation and the west elevation on the right. The south elevation to the left and the east elevation is on the right. The house was built pre-1958. The existing site plan on the left and the proposed in the middle, a revised location has since been submitted for the fence, and that's on the far right diagram. And you can see it creates a little driveway and encloses the part. The existing floor plan on the left and the proposed on the right. The entry portal on the north elevation will be rebuilt and include new concrete stairs, new concrete steps, new doors, and there'll be new concrete steps, doors, and overhangs on the southeast corner and the south facade. On the diagram, existing diagram on the left, you can see the primary facades. We labeled them primary facade A, B, and C. The existing roof plan is on the left and the proposed is on the right. There's essentially no changes to that, with the exception of overhangs over the two new doors. The portal will be rebuilt in the same dimensions as the one that was removed. The north elevation above and the proposed below. The proposed south elevation in the upper left of the screen, the existing below, and no changes to the east elevation in the lower right. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds the application complies with section 14-5.2D general design standards for all historic districts and 14-5.2E downtown and east side design standards. Staff has determined that the max fenced coyote fence height to be to the north of the site to be 53 inches. That I can take any questions.
Any questions for Ramon, for ward members? They don't want to talk to you, Ramon.
Tonight's my lucky night, Madam Chair.
We'll go to the applicants. Okay, applicant or applicants, please get sworn in.
Will you please raise your right hand, state both of your names and recite your street name?
Jeb Mirando, 1301 Declovina Street.
Hi. Christoph Eagleton, 723 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Do you both solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Madam Chair, they've been sworn in.
Thank you very much. Whoever's going to speak.
Madam Chair, Board, thanks very much. I'll be fairly brief as there's not much to this case. Kind of interesting to note, I got involved because as a neighbor of a friend of mine, and I saw that he was fairly jammed up in a situation that didn't present a resolution. So I'm here to help as I can. Really, he's really just trying to restore what he did that he didn't realize wasn't the code in removing what was there. I will say he's greatly conforming it back to what I would consider an interesting example of a primary facade. I see why it was made contributing. It's sort sort of that unique L shape that you don't necessarily run into a lot in the district, forms this beautiful little courtyard. I think really the substance of what was removed, other than that overhang, was essentially a ramshackle sort of conglomeration on the side of it. I think there was a lot of confusion from the Hickby of where that stopped and started, and it being historic material or not being historic material. Clearly was not. There was also an infill, a really, I mean, ridiculous looking infill at that of the parapet, just a painted piece of OSB, right? That kind of completed that parapet. That's going away. He's also proposing, I think, entirely appropriate changes to the back. Just one thing on the staff's report, there's one new opening proposed in the back. All the other openings are existing. I think with that, we'd stand for questions.
Is the fence going to be coyote? And it's 4 feet and 4.5 feet?
4.5.
And is the house remaining the same color?
Well, it's the house. It sounds like it. I think that's really a budgetary concern. I believe it's the color that he bought. I see where you're probably going with that, and I would agree with you. But it's not in.
And it's painted, right?
It's paint on stucco on very interestingly thick one coat stucco.
And Ramon, would you put up the elevation so we can look at it? And board members, do you have any questions or comments? It appears there are no questions or comments, but let me ask for if anyone in this room wants to comment on this project. Stephanie Benato coming down.
I'm not sure the presentation was all that clear because it sounds like some material's already been removed and now it's a question of how to actually replace it. And I think that's on that portal that's on a primary facade that is going to be expanded, it looks like. And I mean, if it was already there and it needs to be replaced, repaired, I guess that you'll have to approve something there. I like that the coyote fencing is low. And I asked that the board request that the bracing be put to the interior of the fencing that is facing the owner's property as opposed to outwardly facing. I think that the board can be reasonable in this matter. You do have 3 primary facades, and putting that one portal on or repairing it, I don't think that it impacts that. I'm not really sure about the overhangs. That's the part, again, it's not totally clear what changes are being made, but they seem to be rather either replacement or kind of minor at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else wishing to comment? Yes.
I respond to Stephanie's, Ms. Benanato's questions about the facade. See if I got a clear picture of it. If you look closely and I'm pretty darn sure that when the primary facades were designated that non-historic materials to be excluded. And in the portal that you can see that is being rebuilt, or actually has already been rebuilt, that's non-historic material. I think it was put up in 1978. And you can make out the described modifications to the parapet above where it was painted OSB, and that has since been removed.
Thank you, Ramon. Board members, anyone on Zoom? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Member Beachside.
Sorry to interrupt the public comment. We can finish that. I just have a question for staff. Okay. I just wondered, Ramon or Heather, we typically require cementitious stucco on contributing buildings. But if the applicant is not proposing to do anything with the stucco or the paint, how do we do, is that an issue for us to address at all?
Rios, member Beachside, if there's no proposed change, then at this time, there's no action. However, if the applicant were propose a change, then we would re-review it for conformance with the historic district's ordinance.
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom?
No, Chair Rios.
No. So I will entertain a motion, board members.
In case 2024-008-010 HDRB 723 Old Santa Fe Trail, I move to approve the project as submitted.
And do I hear a second?
Either seconds.
And may we have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Chair Guida,
Yes.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Valdo,
Yes.
Member Beachside.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion is passed.
Very much, and thank you all. Heather, anything under discussion items?
Yes, Chair Rios. I found the minutes from, and it took me a while, from the discussion regarding the compound for the property that we discussed early on Camino Santiago. And at that time in 2019, there was a motion for staff to prepare an evaluation concerning compound status. And at that time, Ms. Lisa Roach Gavioli or Gavioli Roach proposed to submit a subcommittee of the board. Chair Rios said no. Member Guida asked if it could come back as a case. Ms. Roach believed it could. Member Katz asked if it would be a recommendation to the governing body. And so there was no response at that time, but as it's not a zone district itself, but just a historic designation, it does not need to go to the governing body. So at that sort of an answer to that question would be that it would not go to the governing body. It would just be up to this board. And so Ms. Roach stated at that time that the evaluation that was provided at that time would be brought back as a case. And apparently that never happened. So it's up to the board as to whether you would like to proceed with that. You can let staff know, whenever, if you feel that that is appropriate.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, matters from the board? Anybody? Mr. Member Valdo. Is this your last meeting?
Yes, Chair Rios. Yes, it is. It's my last meeting, and it's been an honor to be with all of you, and I've really learned a lot. And I'm sorry, just due to my work obligations, it's been increasingly difficult to do right by what is necessary and to make the right decisions. So this is my last time, but I really do appreciate everything that staff. Thank you, all of you, and all my board members. Thank you. I've learned so much from you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Member Valdo. And I'm sure I personally will be seeing you because you live very close to me.
I'll come over tomorrow.
Just bring lunch. No, just kidding.
Will do.
And I do want to thank you, Member Valdo, for the comments you made at the awards banquet, and thank everybody that was there. They were very profound comments in reference to us fighting for traditional architecture, and I'm a believer in that. And I thank you for those comments. They were very eloquently stated. And by the way, that the awards comment, the awards ceremony, banquet, whatever it was called, whatever it may be called, was very successful. I do have to say that. It was, I think that's the first time that I have noticed that all of staff was there. Every solitary member of staff was there, which was very nice, and the room was packed. And so it was all good. If there is nothing further,
Madam Chair, I just have a
Yes.
thing, if I may. Just a reminder to folks that the HomeWise Livability Speaker Series kicks off on Thursday night this week. The speaker is Jerusalem Demsas, who's been on the Ezra Klein Show. She's a staff writer at The Atlantic. She writes on housing policy and the economy, and a lot of public process in particular about, why affordable housing does get built or does not get built in cities, and what that has to do with planning and zoning. I think it's something particularly important given where we're at in our zoning rewrite and general plan coming up. The speaker series is free. There are still tickets available. You can go to the HomeWise Livability Series website and get one. It's right after work on this Thursday at Site Santa Fe.
very much for that information. Anybody else? Nope. I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Chad moves to adjourn.
And
May there seconds?
thank you. Roll call vote.
Vice Chair Guido,
Yes.
Member Mather. Yes. Member Valdo,
Yes.
Member Beescheid.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.